Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the City Council meeting. Madam Secretary, can you go ahead and do a roll call, please?
Here. Here.
Here.
Here.
Present.
All right, thank you. Go ahead and get our city manager to say a prayer for us tonight. All right, before we start into our public comments, we're going to have a word with our city attorney. Give us just 1 second, Lee. One more second.
So Lee, Attorney Ream, can you just hold on a minute? We're not getting your volume out yet in the room.
Okay.
All right, go ahead. Thank you.
Are we good?
We're good.
Ready? Okay. So, council, the mayor has noted that during some of the recordings of the meetings, there is difficulty sometimes hearing council members speak, and so just please be mindful of pressing your button and when you're speaking so that it can be heard. Even though the city of Mount Pleasant isn't large enough to have certain requirements under the Open Meetings Act, it's certainly part of the city's efforts to make their meetings available to the public. And so certainly try to do that if possible. And I know that you all also try to correct people when they approach the podium and are making public comments and so on. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Lee. So the city welcomes citizen participation and comments at all council members' meetings. Citizen comments are limited to 3 minutes out of the respect for everyone's time. The council is not permitted to respond to your comments. The Texas Open Meetings Act requires that topics of discussion, deliberation be posted on the agenda not less than 72 hours in advance of the council meetings. If your comment relates to a topic that is on the agenda, the council will discuss that topic on the agenda at the time that the topic is discussed and deliberated. All right, we're going to go ahead and go to item 1, which is pretty exciting, the presentation of Life-Saving Award and mention of Meritus Services Awards. That's going to be all right. Does anybody have any public comment? All right, come on. Just press the button right in front.
Didn't mean to kick that. So my name is Greg Holt. I live at 420 Green Hill Park. I think most of you guys know me. I'm in the same neighborhood as several of you guys. I'm here to talk about what has become a nuisance over the last 18 months to 2 years, and that is the pavilion at the rodeo arena. I don't have a problem with it. I don't have a problem with them doing things there, but the music goes on till midnight, 1 a.m. in the morning. I spoke with the PD about it, spoke with Bo Rester about it. He will not return my calls no longer. He will not return a text. tried to be as nice as possible, cordial as possible. Talked to Michael McCollum about it. They're unwilling to take any action on this, although they promised me the moon. In speaking with the PD, was directed to Lieutenant Nichols, who went above and beyond, went straight out there, checked out the situation. He said, I understand where you would have a problem. I live less than 300 yards from the pavilion. He said, I will instruct the officers to shut it down when you call. Well, it goes down for about 15 minutes, and then it goes back up. And what I'm talking about is just a droning bass for hours and hours. Sometimes it starts at 4:30 in the afternoon. I can't even be at home or enjoy my home on Saturday afternoons because of this. And I certainly can't sleep. Fans running, sound machines running, TV playing, you cannot drown it out. I don't think my home should be invaded. I mean, I bought a lot and a home in the best neighborhood, trying to protect my investment, and that's not happening. So my reason for being here is just to start the conversation, see if there's anything you guys can look into doing on that. I would greatly appreciate some help on it, because it is driving me absolutely insane. Totally get why they use that in hostage situations. It is completely annoying. So any help in that situation I could get, I would greatly, and several other people. There are a lot of other people that are concerned about it. They just haven't taken the initiative. But I'm sick of it. So something's got to happen. My next step is a lawsuit to get an injunction. I really don't want to spend that kind of money, but if that's what it takes, I will. So that's all I've got. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Holt. We appreciate it. All right, let's go ahead and we'll close public comment. Is there anyone else? Public comment? All right, let's move on to item number 1. Presentation of Life-Saving Award and mention of Meritorious Service Awards.
Good evening, Council. If I could call Sergeant Beasley and Lieutenant Nichols and Corporal Mendoza and Officers Guerrero and Officer De Jesus up. So I'm gonna turn a little bit so I can address the public and their families that are here tonight. This is a opportunity we have tonight to recognize 3 of our officers from a sad incident that happened in the city, but some courageous action taken by our officers. And I have it prepared, and I'm just gonna read it so I don't mess it up. This was brought to my attention by Sergeant John Beasley, who's here, who supervises this squad on the day shift. And he stated to me that he would like to recommend Corporal Mendoza, Officer Guerrero, and Officer De Jesus for the Life-Saving Award for their combined actions when responding to the incident that occurred at the CC's, which no doubt saved Joseph McKellar's life. So on this day, Officer Guerrero was the first officer on scene. He identified and kind of realized the seriousness of the incident and found young Joseph McKellar unresponsive. Officer Guerrero radioed an assessment of the scene, which prompted a quick response from his shift, as well as several other law enforcement agencies, EMS and fire. He and Corporal Mendoza made the decision, which was not normal for us, to move Joseph, carrying him to Officer De Jesus' vehicle. Corporal Mendoza knew McKellar's situation was dire and instructed Officer De Jesus to transport him into a higher level of care. Officer De Jesus transported Joseph to TRMC, where staff was awaiting with a care team to tend to his injuries. Joe McKellar's family and doctors have said that the officer's actions saved his life due to the level of his injuries from this incident. And as a personal note, his father personally came and met with me and expressed his gratitude for these officers' actions. Officer Guerrero and Corporal Mendoza then remained on scene, treating additional injured people and further assisted fire and EMS for the duration of the incident. Officer De Jesus remained at TRMC, the emergency room, as a liaison for additional patients and family members responding up there. So as such, the Mount Pleasant Police Department awards Corporal Angel Mendoza, Officer Cesar Guerrero, and Officer Kimberly De Jesus with the Police Life-Saving Award. which is awarded to officers whose actions directly result in a life being saved. So if I can just take 2 more seconds and just explain something. The actions of the officers, so we train on what to do during traumatic injuries and incidents like this often. And one of the things we typically do not do is transport injured people. But because of their quick recognition, they went outside the scope of what we normally do and made a split-second decision, which that second decision was the correct decision. And so it was a bold decision, and I'm grateful for their willingness to act outside of what's normal for us in normal training to save Joseph's life.
All right, great job, everybody. We do appreciate you every day. All right. So consent agenda. Items on the consent agenda are approved through a single council motion which apply to all items listed. Consent agendas items are considered routine, not likely to require discussion or deliberation, and may be discussed prior to making a motion. There will be no separate discussions on these items unless a council member requests an item be removed or confirmed separately. So item number 2, consider approval of July 15th, July 16th, July 21st, 2025 meeting minutes. Item number 3, consider pay request number 9 for Wicker Construction Incorporated for work performed on the West Loop wastewater collection project. Item number 4, consider pay request number 2 for J2 Construction Services for work performed in industrial lift station and the Force Main. And item number 5, consider pay request number 26 from Heritage Construction LLC for work performed at the Southside Wastewater Treatment Plant. Can I get a motion?
I make a motion to approve item number 2, 3, 4, and 5. Trying to read. Is that it? I think so. And the minutes, yes.
I second the motion.
Madam Secretary, can you take the vote?
Councilmember Corbell?
Yes.
Councilmember Redfern?
Aye.
Councilmember Hinton?
Aye.
Councilmember Knight?
Aye.
Councilmember Hageman?
Aye.
All right, vote passed unanimously. We'll move on to item number 6, presentation of fiscal year 2024 financial audit. Jill?
Good evening, Council and Mayor. Today we have one of our auditors, Austin Henderson. He'll be coming up and making a presentation of the audit for us.
Welcome, Austin.
All right. To hold this down. Quite the contraption. Okay, so my name's Austin Henderson. I'm a CPA here in Texas. I reside in Fort Worth, so it's a couple hours down the road. This is my first year working on the audit, so I know a lot of y'all are new to council. I was new to the city this year as well, so kind of good to get fresh eyes on the processes and procedures and all that. So as I go through everything, I'll just want to kind of start with a kind of a high-level view of what the audit process is. And again, just to kind of kick us off, we are talking about the audit of the September 30, 2024 financials. So when I say this year, I'm talking 23, 24. When I say last year, I'm talking 22, 23. So I know y'all are in the middle of budget and everything right now. So you're kind of probably thinking in the current and the future. So just know we're kind of looking a little bit further back here. So we start with our planning phase, and that's where we come in and we look at the processes, the procedures, what's happening at the city, what's new. Are the financial policies in place up to date? Do they need to be updated? Are there recommendations that we can make? Those sorts of things, and we look at the actual numbers themselves and see where the risks at. I always like to point out, in an audit, we're not looking at every single check that the city cuts. We're not looking at every single revenue that comes in. We're looking at samples. We're looking at anything material, anything that's the high dollar value. We're going to be looking at, obviously, but some of those things we're going to test, maybe 20 out of hundreds of transactions to make sure that the process works. So that's kind of how we do it. The field work is where we come out and actually do all of that work. We began that back in December, actually. So it's quite, it can be quite a long process, especially when there's turnover in finance departments and stuff like that. So it's quite a lot of work to get everything together for us. So obviously we like to do this a little bit earlier than August the following year. So we know this took a little bit this year. So just want to give you all the heads up that we're well aware of that. The last piece of the audit being the concluding and reporting, which is what we're here doing tonight, giving you all the reports and the letters and everything to put in front of you. So just real quick, we don't have to go through every single one of these. This is all the different components of an annual comprehensive financial report. The only part that really we own as the auditor is the auditor's opinion. I always like to kind of point that out. The rest of the financial report really is the city's story to tell. So you have your introductory section, which has a couple little pieces to it. Our opinion, which we'll get into here in a minute. The management discussion and analysis, which is a little bit of a year-over-year comparison. Gives the city a chance to kind of say, hey, here's what happened, and here's what's come up in the next budget and all that. Next, you got your basic financial statements. You got government-wide, which is your full accrual for both governmental activities and your business type. And then you got fund level statements. So it pairs down to the fund level. Then it goes even further in the notes. So you've got more detailed information on your capital assets, your debt, pension liability, those kind of things. Next, you got your required supplementary information. So that's even more stuff that the GFOA and the GASB Government Standards Board requires to be put in governmental financial statements. So all that's in there. You got your supplementary information, and lastly, your statistical section, which the statistical section, I always like to point out, all those numbers are unaudited, but they're in there to kind of compare if you're going to go pull, Texarkana's report and you want to kind of see what do they look like compared to Mount Pleasant and some of these factors. You can do that with the statistical section. So going back to that opinion, there's 4 possible outcomes for the opinion. We were able to issue an unmodified opinion, which layman's terms, clean audit, clean opinion. It's the highest level of assurance that we can give that the financial statements are free from material misstatement. So some high-level numbers here, just kind of looking at cash, net position, citywide, governmental fund balance, all those things. There was an increase in cash, primarily due to some debt issuances. So city issued some bonds in 2024. The cash comes in to obviously be able to spend that bond money. So cash went up quite a bit there. Net position was, I say, a slight decrease of $2 million. That never sounds like a slight decrease, right? But going from 65 to 63, or 65.7 to 63.7, that is, in our eyes, a fairly slight decrease, staying pretty even year over year. And we'll look into some of the reasons for that here in a couple slides. But the big things I wanted to point out was unassigned general fund balance got up last year. That was a little bit of a concerning number at 7%. You want to be, the GFOA recommendation is to be at least 16%, I believe, which is about 2 months of expenditures. Ending this year was 19%. So you're trending up on that. So that's always a good thing to see. And then obviously I mentioned that debt principal increase of the bond issuances in 24. So there's a lot of numbers on here. I like to point out the little blue bar on the top of the slides, which you have in front of you, does reference which page in the report that's coming from. So if you want to go back later and kind of look at these and see where these numbers are coming from, definitely feel free. I just like to point that out so you know kind of where this is coming from. Overall revenues, slightly down governmental revenues. Again, I'll go through a little bit of budget to actual here in a bit to kind of look at some of the detail there. And this little pie chart here is just kind of showing how much of, how much is in each bucket, right? So sales tax is making up a third of the governmental revenues. Property tax is making up 29%. And we have those comparisons in there to prior year as well to just kind of see how much of the pie was it making up in 22-23 versus 23-24. I know as you're going through budget time, this is something you're kind of keeping an eye on. So just some information there. I won't go through every single number. Same on the expense side. You got public safety makes up about half. That's pretty typical. And then your general government making up about 20%. Again, fairly typical for a city that provides the sort of services that y'all do. So I don't think there wasn't any that had any big change. I think parks, the spending was a little bit down in 23-24. So slight decrease there, but otherwise pretty flat across the board between 22-23 and 23-24. So looking here at the actual change in fund balance for the major and non-major governmental funds. So there are only two major funds. There's general fund and street fund. Both had a positive net change in fund balance, so an increase of $2.2 million in general fund, an increase of $290 in that street fund, which it's almost back to where that fund balance position is back to zero, which is kind of where you wanted to get to. I think in the ending prior year, almost negative 300,000. So what that basically is just representing that there's other funds that it's essentially borrowing from. And so that number is almost back to zero at the end of 24. So it's good to see it going that way as opposed to if it was just to continue to stay negative, it would be being subsidized by the general fund, right? So and then another in the non-major governmental funds, you see a net change of about $5 million increase. So there's a bunch of different funds that make that up, and those are in the back of the report that combine up to make that number. So looking at general fund by itself, this is the budget to actual for total revenues, total expenditures. So if you look at the budget for 23-24, you're going to see total revenue budget of 16.2. Actual revenues only came out about 15 million. So that negative variance there is 1.1 million. Basically over budgeted revenues, right? Like whatever the forecast was going into 23-24 really overshot in a couple different areas. And so one being sales tax, and I believe property tax maybe as well. Greg can correct me if I'm wrong on that, but there were a couple of misses there. So whatever the planning was, there was quite a big miss on the revenue side. The expenses, to the city's credit, still came under what was budgeted. I think obviously as the year goes on, you kind of start to realize, hey, revenues aren't hitting exactly where we're wanting. Maybe we need to tighten a few things expenditure-wise. So expenditures were under by 476,000. The total other financing uses or sources and uses, that's transfers in, bond issuances, those sort of things. That came in pretty much right on par, a positive variance of 240,000 there. So if you kind of look at it there was a planned change in fund balance of an increase of 2.6. Your actual, the number that's not circled in there is the 2.2. That was the actual increase in the general fund balance, which is a negative variance from what was planned, but still overall was an increase of 2.2. So you see that number go up, but it didn't go up as much as was planned for the budget, right? So just real quick, wanted to hit on the water and sewer and the airport fund. I always circle this operating income loss. Mostly just want to see that the water and sewers paying for itself, right? You don't want to be subsidizing that with property tax money or sales tax money or anything like that. Those should be self-sustaining funds. Same as the airport. I know the airport, a lot of that is timing on expenditures. Sometimes, the timing of those grants that come in from TxDOT, they're late, so they kind of crosses fiscal years. So overall, nothing overly concerning there. You see the transfers in on the airport side. So relatively flat between the years and a healthy ending net position. You don't want to see that going, super south. And again, that operating income in water and sewer, I think the rate changes that went into effect in 24 was a big boon to those operating revenues there. So you see that big operating income number for water and sewer. This is just kind of the details here on the TMRS liability. So you can see there's always some big swings in there, basically just depending on how the market does. So if the market does well, pension liability is probably going to come down because your investment income is going to go up, and vice versa. If the market has a down year, then you're going to see maybe your pension liability goes up because the plan isn't as funded as it was in the year before, or you're taking on more employees and not, a lot of it hinges as well on the actuaries who kind of create these estimates of how long people will live, when they're going to retire, all those sorts of things. So we take those reports and we kind of we look at them and make sure, obviously we're in agreement as the auditors. I'm not an actuary, so I'm not a specialist in a lot of the estimates that they do, but we look at these for reasonableness. The current funded ratio is 86%, which is great. Prior year is 82%. That was if everyone in the city retired right now, would you be able to fund their retirement? And you're sitting at 86%, which I see cities that are way, way below that, and that's obviously a concern. So basically just wanted to put this in here to show you're in good shape. That's something that you're kind of keeping up with that, some cities don't. So the last piece, you have all that in front of you there, is the communication letters. There's 2 letters there that per audit standards we're required to provide y'all. The first being the communication with those charged with governance, meaning council. That just states we're in compliance with all ethical requirements regarding independence. I'm just a guy from Fort Worth. I have no financial interest in the city of Mount Pleasant doing well or not doing well, right? I'm completely independent. We didn't have any difficulties in our dealings with management. If we had, hey, we can't get information, or we were requesting things or whatever, we would put that in this letter and say, hey, look, Greg's being a jerk the whole time, and he's not giving us anything. We have to put that in there, right? And say, we're not dealing with management well. Didn't have any difficulties there. No uncorrected misstatements were identified. Anything that we brought to the city as far as journal entries, they made timely and agreed with. We came to an agreement there. And then that listing of all those adjustments is at the back of that first letter. The second letter is our communication regarding internal controls. That's where we put in anything where process improvements that we see, things that are coming up. We actually have some informational pieces at the end of that. Those aren't necessarily, the first 2 there are what we consider quote unquote findings. The rest of it's not findings. It's just kind of informational. Hey, this is maybe something that could be tightened up. This is a new accounting standard that's coming into effect next year. Things like that. We put that all in that internal control letter. So that's all I have. I'm happy to go through, if there's any questions. Also, feel free to email, call with questions. It's not just, this isn't your only opportunity to talk. We're happy to talk anytime, so.
It mentions here the letter for internal controls findings related to, where, is that letter in our package?
It should be, and then also it should be in the front of the report where the slides were. Behind it, there was a couple of letters there. The 2 letters should be in there. So if it's not, definitely let me know, because I got some more copies. Those are it, yes. And there's an additional report in there that is a governmental report that we have to provide. So that's just another piece to it. So there should be 3 behind the slides in addition to the report.
Any questions from the council?
Mr. Mayor and Council, I would like to just take a moment, because I think it's important that that you all just understand those comments that are made. I do think it's good that we very quickly address them, because it's something that your auditors do for you that says, hey, there's something that could be a problem in the future. And so I've asked Jillian to very quickly address them from that letter. And so if you wouldn't mind, Jillian, just list what they are real quickly. It'll only take a couple minutes here, and then what actions we've already taken. Thank you.
And there is also a letter in your packet on the last page at the very end of the audit report that has the same response to that internal control letter. And so the first one, I believe the first one is the end of year policies and just keeping in compliance with GAAP standards. And so we're already looking a little bit ahead, make sure that we're making all of our year-end entries that we need to, so that we don't have as many adjusting entries. And then with bank information from vendors, we implemented a new policy last year where we reach out to a second party within that vendor and verify all their information, make sure that they verify what their old information is and their new information, so we are 100% talking to the vendor and have it all going the right way. The police department escrow liability, chief has assured me that most of what's in that account is accounted for and can be traced back to individuals. It's stuff from way back when that's a little bit off. We just need to take some time and dig in and find the individuals for those balances. For the utility billing adjustment process, during the audit, it came up that the process was being completed by 2 people. So one person would receive the adjustment from a citizen, and then the other one would review and post it. We have now separated that into 3 people. So one person receives the adjustment request from an individual, the second person will review it, and the third person will enter it into the system just to make sure that it is keeping all the duties segregated and there's no errors that can be made there. For P-card statements, we have now, last year, we implemented where department directors must sign off on it. Every single statement. We will not pay a statement unless it has a department director or supervisor signature on it. And then we also now have where I will go in and review and make sure that all the charges look like they are proper city charges before it also gets paid. And then the last item is also related back to adjustment entries, making sure that we're staying on top of new guidelines and we get all the year-end entries done on time and before, so the auditors don't have to do that for us.
If I could just comment, I just appreciate, Jillian, we did have a lot of, there was a lot to work through when we first started here, started in June, and you council members started in May. And she's done a great job picking up and cleaning up a lot of things. And you know, the first one is you know, with this contacting your vendors, that was a very significant issue when we issued a check to somebody scammed us, the city of Mount Pleasant, for $1 million check, and we didn't go through that process. So I appreciate that, but every time you get a letter from the auditors, you always look at it and say, what are your recommendations? And they definitely should be looked at. And Jillian's done a great job with her team. There was 29 comments from our 29 adjustments from our auditor, which is, it's higher than what you would hope for and expect. So it is a goal for our finance director that will be below 20. There always will be some. So your auditor looks at, and there's always some adjustments made. But 29 was a more significant number than what we like to see. And so there's a goal that we will definitely be under 20 next year, or I'm coming back. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, got it now? Okay. Can we get a copy? Can the council get a copy of the letter that you have, the statements that need, the corrections that need to be made, or is it in our package as well?
My letter response is in your but it's in your agenda packet.
And I have another question, and I'm sure I looked through this, and of course it's overwhelming. I'm not a financial person, but I was surprised at one thing. It's on page 36, and when it talks about the statement of revenues, expenditures, and changes in fund balance, there is a mixed beverage taxes. Is that what we collect on the beer and alcohol sales within the city?
Yes, ma'am. The mixed beverage tax is the liquor tax for beer, wine, and liquor.
Well, I'm just saying this because I'm absolutely shocked. I thought we were going to collect so many tens and hundreds of thousands of dollars when that was promoted. This is the first time I've ever seen that. It's actually only $30,000.
Go ahead.
All right, well, I've got another one on page 98 of the report. See, I actually attempted to at least read part of it. Down there where it says salary increases, the 3.5 to 11.5, but yet it's under the schedule of contributions to the pension plan. Can you explain that one to me?
Yeah, I can. I'm never taller than anybody, so I never get to move the mic up. This is a moment for me. I've never had to do that. I'm always pulling it down. I'm a short guy. That specific disclosure, that is the actuary's information. So that's their methods and assumptions that they use to calculate the liability. Because what they do is the actuary who does this, they do this for every city that contributes to TMRS. So it's not specific to the city of Mount Pleasant saying that y'all's increases are 3.5% to 11.5%. They're just saying on average for all cities who are part of TMRS, this is the assumption that we make, that 3.5 to 11.5 includes inflation there.
Okay, I have one more, then I'll shut up, I promise. I'm looking on pages 136 and 137. Under the business type activities down toward the bottom quarter of the page where it mentions the Civic Center, I guess it's their revenue. The from 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, there's nothing in that column, so I was just wondering what that was.
I think I can speak to that. So the Civic Center for the expense line, starting in 2020 through 2024, I think the reason for that is because it y'all track that more in the general fund now instead of separately. So back in 2019 and before, those expenses were tracked as a separate fund, and I think it's still a separate fund in the system, but for reporting purposes, it's kind of meshed up in the general fund. And then same on the revenue side. I think there was a couple years where that was being tracked directly in the general fund, and now we have split back out some of those revenues. So it looks kind of funky because you've got those 5 years up through 2019 on both revenue and expense side where the Civic Center was being tracked separately in this report. That's really just a change in reporting that was done in 2020, which I believe is the first year that Brooke Watson did the audit. I don't remember exactly. Like I said, this was my first year working on it, but so that's why that change is there. But definitely a good question, and I don't get a lot of questions on the stat section very often, so I appreciate it. No, that's great. I love it. It means you actually read it, which is more than a lot of people do. Yeah. No.
In that same line that was just asked, I'm presuming all these blanks that are shown on the 136 and 137. I'm assuming those are all general fund moves for the most part. I mean, I'm casting a wide net on that question.
Yeah, so like in the past, it looks like the public, what is that? I'm just trying to follow the line all the way across. Public services, public works, parks and rec. So a lot of times what happens is it becomes how useful is it to look at these individually versus the whole pot. So a lot of times that's individual budgeting decisions, things like that. And I can't speak necessarily to why because I wasn't doing the audit. I think a lot of people here weren't working here. But yeah, so these tables, we just have to put in there the numbers that were in the report in that year. And so even if we were to say, oh, now we recognize public services with public safety kind of all in the same thing, we still have to show that they broke it out back in 2015 through 2018 or whatever it may be. So if there's blanks in here, yeah, that's probably the case. Or like some of them, there's this operating grants and contributions line. There may just not have been operating grants and contributions every year, just one year that happened. Things like that for the revenues. But on the on the expense side, and then as well on the charges for services revenue, especially, sometimes it's becomes more work than it's worth to track some of that stuff separately, right? People are taking way too much time to parse out, what's what, and really it's all going in the same bucket, right? So.
Yeah, that's good. Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right, at this time, I'd like to make a motion to accept the financial audit.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to accept the audit for 2023, year ending in 2023. Excuse me.
I second.
Madam Secretary, can you take the vote?
Councilmember Corbell,
Yes.
Councilmember Redfern,
Aye.
Councilmember Hinton,
Aye.
Councilmember Knight,
Aye.
Councilmember Hageman.
Aye.
The acceptance is unanimous. Thank you, Jillian and Austin. We appreciate you. All right, we're gonna go ahead and move on to item number 7. Consider approval of solid waste collection and disposal rate increase with Republic Services, Inc. Jillian.
So this is just something that comes annually from Republic. They use the CPI to increase their rate that we pass through onto residents for trash collection. So this is just a housekeeping thing to approve their rate change.
So I had a question on that when I was reading it. Is there an increase every year?
I believe so, yes.
I was just curious. Okay, thank you. Any questions? No.
To clarify that on your initial comment, it may increase, but it's all dependent on CPI, just for clarity.
Yes, that is correct. They use the CPI for the prior 12 months to determine what their increase will be.
Could you kind of explain the rate increases or whatever that we have so that those listening will hear it?
On what the actual rates are? Okay, let's see. I think I just have the new rates. I don't have the old rates in front of me. But the residential twice a week trash will, let's see. I believe it's $19.44 is what the new rate is. I don't have in front of me what the current rates are though to know the difference between them. Or it's in here. $18.97 is the current rate, and it'll be going to $19.44 for the normal residential trash that's picked up twice a week.
What is the $14.56 that's out beside what we have here in red?
So that is the price that Republic charges us as a city.
All right. Any public comment? Council? All right, I'd like to get a motion. It's a lot. Give them a second.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve the 2.5 increase, understanding that they are raising this due to the CPI change for the year ending in 20. I think it, based on the table, calculated as of May 24th.
I'll second it. And this has become effective October the 1st.
All right, Madam Secretary, can you take a vote, please?
Councilmember Hageman,
Aye.
Councilmember Knight,
Aye.
Councilmember Hinton,
Aye.
Councilmember Redfern,
Aye.
Councilmember Corbell.
Yes.
That passed unanimously. We're gonna go ahead and move on to item number 8. Consider pay request number 1 for capital underground utilities for work performed for the Housing Authority water improvements. That's there. Lawyer.
Good evening. So for the first pay request, we wanted to give you an overview of why we're doing the project and pretty much what it looks like. So to start with the Housing Authority, it's easier just to tell you a little brief history of what's going on with the water line and able to explain why we're doing this project now. So the brief facts were, it's the original line from 1967. The line is a 6-inch ductile iron line. It was designed to be a one-line feed into 2 loop lines. Back when it was first designed, if you look at the map to the right, the city water meter was right about the northeast corner coming off Lee Street, and it was all a private line when they originally designed it, and it looped into itself. So typically over the years, if a line is designed this way, after time it won't circulate itself, so it starts to degrade the line. There's no movement. Any water that comes out is usually from a resident or a break in the line. So after a while, the water starts to get old and breaks down, and depending on the line, we'll start eating away the line from the inside out. Since it was a ductile iron line, this line started to eat away over the years. So about in I'd say the late 1990s, I couldn't find the exact date, the city took over the water line because of water quality issues. Same concept, water's not moving, water starts to break down, starts tasting different and looking different. So back in the 90s, the city took over the line, took out the city meter, and gave all the individual units taps. And we installed a water line to the north that would give circulation to the line, and a water line to the south onto, I think it's Hayes Street. So it would be able to circulate. This did fix the water quality issue that we had on the line, but we found out a few years ago that the first 30 years pretty much destroyed the line. So the line started breaking, the corrosion in it started changing the water color again, and TCEQ was informed. We weren't on violation, but we were required to replace, is what we were told. We tried to get a grant, we were turned down, and this is where we've gotten, is to go with the project and replace the whole entire line. The project itself was to install 3,400 feet of 6-inch PVC water main, install 8 new fire hydrants, and new service lines for all the units. Benefits of it was to remain TCEQ compliant and better water quality for all the residents in the Housing Authority. Budget was, this project was budgeted for $650,000. Contract came in at $451,895. Start date was April 21st, 2025, and the completion date is August 19th, 2025. This is the layout of the new line that has been installed. It already has been installed. It's not in service yet, but it has been installed. Comes off the north side, goes all through following the original line so we don't make a bigger footprint. Loops back around but does not connect to itself and comes right back out onto Lee Street. So it's a through flow water line. Always be fresh water, no stoppage, and everyone would have a better water quality. Pay request we have sorry, I'm halfway blind, I can't see that. Pay request number one is in the amount of $163,827.50. The pay request is for mobilization laying 2,250 feet of 6-inch water main and the installation of fire hydrants. Original construction was $451,895. The amount of this pay request is $163,827.50. Percent of time complete is 55%. Percent of money is 36%. Recommend a motion to pay request number one in the amount of $163,827.50. Any questions?
Councilman Corbett? I have one that's gonna sound kinda funny, but what happened to the old fire hydrant?
When we take fire hydrants out of service, we cut them off of the lines, we take them back to our service center, and we use those parts for spare.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering. Okay, good.
Yeah, so the insides are interchangeable on all the other ones, so we just gut those. Any parts we can use, we just use it on other ones to save on cost.
So understanding most of it's installed, I guess there's 2 weeks left on the project, assuming. Are we gonna have, and I'm just noticing it's saying 5%, so I'm guessing, in the next 2 weeks, we're gonna pressure test and do all those fun things, and then we'll just have one additional, payout request?
Yes, sir. We've already done the pressure test. The only thing that's waiting on is a sample from, the state saying that we passed, so they can actually drink the water, and once that's passed, all we do is turn it on. Everything else is done.
Great, thanks. I always see that percentage at 5%, I'm like, damn, man, I'm like, how much is left to go?
I get a motion on item number 8, consider the pay request number 1 for capital underground utilities for work performed for the Housing Authority, water improvement.
I make a motion that we approve the pay request for capital underground utilities for the work performed at the Housing Authority in the amount of $163,827.50.
I'll second.
Madam Secretary, can you take the vote?
Councilmember Corbell,
Yes.
Councilmember Redfern,
Aye.
Councilmember Hinton,
Aye.
Councilmember Knight,
Aye.
Councilmember Hageman.
Aye.
All right, item passed unanimously. We'll go ahead and move on to item number 9. Hold a public hearing for the city unsafe building abatement code found in chapter 150 of the Code of Ordinances, and consider a declaration of dilapidated structure at 1322 East Ferguson within the city of Mount Pleasant, Texas. Find it to rehabilitation or demolition, providing a time within which the owner should rehabilitate, repair, or demolish such structures, and to consider ordering city abatement and subsequent lien on dilapidated structures at 1322 East Ferguson, Mount Pleasant, City Blocks, Block 350, Lot CP of 7. And we need to open a public hearing.
Yeah, I'll just give you a little brief history of the property real quick, and just kind of go over. So this is 1322 East Ferguson. I don't know if it was a house at one time. I talked to the owner. His name is Mr. Zapeta. I think he said it was a house, and then he was using it for storage. But essentially, the process and overview for this is dictated by Chapter 150 in our local ordinances, and Chapter 214 in the Government Code. Basically, our staff identifies properties. They send out notices to the homeowner of items that need to be corrected. If we get no response from the homeowner, then we bring it before the city council, who will hold a hearing and allow the homeowner to come before and set up a timeline if they wish to repair the property, or the city may order the property to be demolished. At that time, we'll give the property owner 30 days to demolish it. If they don't, we will demolish it and bill the owner. If they don't pay the bill, then we'll lien the property. And so this particular property is located at 1322 East Ferguson, Mr. Zepeda. He lives in this house right here, and so this is kind of, I don't know if it was a house, I think he said it was a house or an accessory structure. But it's gotten to the point now where it's essentially deteriorated. He told me that he understands it needs to be demolished. He said he wasn't gonna be here tonight, to fight it. So these are pictures of the property. The walls are falling in on one side, the roof's beginning to fall in here on the, west side of the property. And so it's just at the point where it needs to come down. So this is a public hearing if you have any questions for me.
Anybody have any questions?
Mayor, have you opened the public hearing?
I did, and my button
Okay.
was pushed and everything. All right, so we'll go ahead and close the hearing, and then, take a vote on it.
I'll make a motion to declare the accessory structure at 1322 East Ferguson substandard and order it to be demolished by owner within 30 days and to authorize abatement by the city after that time, according to procedures in city ordinance and state statute.
I second.
Madam Secretary, will you take the vote?
Councilmember Knight,
Aye.
Councilmember Hinton,
Aye.
Councilmember Redfern,
Aye.
Councilmember Corbell,
Yes.
Councilmember Hageman.
Aye.
All right, well, it's passed unanimously. All right, so we're gonna move on to, item number 10, discussion of vehicle exhaust noise, and we're gonna talk to the chief.
Good evening again. So I guess the way it was explained to me is we wanted to have a discussion about loud mufflers in the city. I didn't know if you wanted to speak first or if you wanted me to kind of talk about some of the perspective from the police department.
I just had, several people, since I've started, complaining about that. So I just wanted to pass it on. I didn't know if there was, if the mufflers are completely cut off, or do y'all use any noise devices or anything like that to check it?
Yeah, so, thank you. So I have spoken with my officers in the past about this issue, asked them to keep an eye on it. So there are two different ordinances that they can enforce. One is actually, there's a state statute for loud mufflers, and we have a city ordinance that similarly mirrors that state statute, under the transportation code. But there's also an equipment violation code that they use more often, which is if any equipment required to be on the vehicle is not an operational order, they can issue a citation or a warning for that equipment. So we recently went back and looked at our citation process. My officers don't usually issue muffler citations, but we don't know how many equipment violations were for mufflers because it covers so many, and they do issue a lot of those citations and or warnings. Occasionally they make a note saying it's the left tail light, but often they do not. So we've spoken with the officers about documenting that in a note in their citations for the court, but also so that we can look at it. It's mainly for the court because it's not a searchable field in the notes. But we've also talked to them about the statute that they can use, or the ordinance that they can use, city ordinance just for mufflers. And that states that every motor vehicle shall at all times be equipped with a muffler in good working order and in constant operation to prevent excessive or unusual noise and annoying smoke. And no person shall use a muffler, cutout, bypass, or similar device upon a motor vehicle in the city. And just so you know, I've looked at several other cities, and our ordinance is similar to those who have something. Some of them don't really address the issue. I did see one city that required a noise device to make sure it wasn't above 85 decibels. That's very difficult to drive down the road though and hang a decibel meter at your window when there's a car driving in front of you with all the other things they have to do. So I don't really like that requirement. This is, as you all know, we know it's probably more of an issue downtown because of the proximity of the glass and the buildings, so it echoes, right? And we've all heard it. And so unfortunately it's more of a random thing that we see. So we've asked the officers that when they're in their patrol function, if they're not busy and they see it, to please make sure to enforce it. And so we've brought that up again one more time, because I agree with you, Mayor. I've heard these complaints as well in the past, and I've heard some of the pipes too, right? So especially I've asked them to especially keep an eye out downtown where we know it really echoes, and some of them like to punch that gas to make it. They like the echo, right?
Right. So how many citations do we write just for the, what were you calling it, malfunctioning equipment or something like that?
I don't have the number of citations we wrote for equipment violations, but I mean, we do about 8,500 traffic stops a year, and about 65% of those are warnings, and about 35% are citations. Let me see if that was included in my email with the statistics we looked at.
And I think this is gonna probably touch a nerve on both sides, just bringing it up, but I mean, it speaks to quality of life in Mount Pleasant, you know, and if you're in some parts of the town, you don't hear it at all. So you'd be asking what we're talking about, but when you live close to downtown, then you hear it.
I would also say over there on the, towards Paris, on the other side of 30, by New City Lake, you can't miss them. They'll echo all the way. I mean, it's pretty loud. It's a specific type of truck. I'll talk to the chief afterwards.
Well, and some of the issues we've had up there too is also racing, and we get them racing downtown. They like to hit First Street and see if they can make 12th Street and who gets the 2-lane to 1-lane first. I know my officers enforce that when they see that. In fact, I one day had a complaint from one of the drivers, and I'm like, well, you were going more than double the speed limit. I don't know what to tell you. Well, the other guy didn't get stopped. Well, I apologize. He can only get one person at a time. So I know they stopped that, and we have, in fact, a couple summers ago, we did some special enforcement trying to make sure that we were knocking it down. They typically are going out in the county, but occasionally they come around in the city. But especially on Jefferson, it's quite dangerous. So you may see an officer occasionally there at the Y, sitting there at 12th Street in that open area. And at night, that's partially what they're looking for.
I would agree, and I think that it's also in the park, very loudly in the park, all through Southgate, all that. So my question, because I'm not a car person, and I know we don't do inspections anymore, right, when we're renewing our vehicles. So how can we see if these mufflers have been modified so that we could say that's not acceptable in the city limits?
Well, the one thing I'll say about that is that our ordinance doesn't require an inspection, and neither does the state law. The state law says a motor vehicle shall be equipped with a muffler in good working condition that continually operates to prevent excessive or unusual noises. So it's quite vague, not vague. It leaves it up to the interpretation of the officer if they find that the operation is excessive or the noise is unusual. And so again, we have vehicles that come from the dealers with pipes that can make I call them, especially some of the muscle cars, right? They have pipes that can do that, but it's different when you go downtown between two buildings and you pop it in neutral and intentionally hit the gas to shake everybody's windows. And so I think then you can look at enforcement, right? But it is open to interpretation, and so it is a difficult ordinance and state transportation code to enforce. And so what we'll probably see more often is the officers will issue warnings unless it's really excessive, right? And we know you can hear that motorcycle or that truck when you can tell they drilled holes or they pulled out the baffles or they've cut it. Those will shake your teeth as they go down the street.
I did not know that, this really was coming up tonight, but I will say, in my previous home, I had a neighbor that was very sick, and he was on hospice. And his bedroom and his windows, the neighbor had a son who got a new pickup truck and had a job where he had to leave like at 5:30 or 6 in the morning to get to his job. And of course, he thoroughly enjoyed pressing and, gunning it. And not only did my neighbor's house shake, my house shook. Every dog in the neighborhood, started barking. But what really, I just knew it was a young teenager. But when someone is sick like that, it broke my heart, and the parents really did not take care of it.
Well, and I can tell you that we have had circumstances where that was reported to us, and we did some individual enforcement.
And I live over by P.E. Wallace, so you could probably just sit over there and hand out citations.
Well, like I said, if it, I hesitate to put an officer there because it is, if there were 3 every 30 minutes, then it's a useful deployment, but it is random, right? It depends on who comes through. And so when I get information that it's a particular time, like 6 in the morning, and they're decidedly doing it to wake up the neighbors, we can target some of that time. Otherwise, what I've asked the officers is, you see them out, they're out all the time. We're just trying to bring it to their special attention that, hey, pay some special attention and maybe give some special time to this enforcement.
Sounds good. So everybody listening, if you want to start trending this stuff, start writing it down and see if there is, a special time or day that you're hearing it. That'll help them out. I'm sure they want to do something about it, but we need some information. So thank you, Chief. Appreciate it. All right. Item number 11 is the city manager's report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Chief, and I think, City Council, we always appreciate bringing in your officers. It's always good to see the people that are protecting our streets day and night, so appreciate that acknowledgement. I know the council feels the same way. Aaron, could you step up just for a second? Because I think there was a really good question that I heard asked of council, and I have the same one. So, Aaron, I think, like, you look at the agenda item for this particular item, and when it says, you show up there that the project's supposed to be complete by August 19. But if you look at the agenda item report, it says 5% complete. And so those two just, they don't make sense. Yeah, even 55 is, and you're 2 weeks away. So I think when you put this time frame in here, it relates to the actual request for pay. And if you look at the request for the pay, it's back in June. And so we tell that the contractors, they can only submit 1 per month. And so you're almost done with the project, but you're well over 55%. You're into the very, very last step. And so just to understand that, because it does look funny. Actually, when I first started, I'm like, why is that reading that percentage when you're well ahead of that? So you have to kind of look back at when the pay request was, which was June, and that will tell you why at that point in time it was whatever percentage is written here. And that's a good point. It did say 5%. I think 55 was what you meant. So that's a great question. And hopefully that's provides some clarity. Yeah, I know, but hey, boss. So last thing I want to do is not take a lot of your time. You have a busy week, City Council. Thursday night is a work session on the proposed 2025-26 budget of the City Council. We did give you your packet tonight. I like to say that I give you the packet a little bit ahead of time, certainly familiarize yourself with it, but what I like to do is have you pack and walk through different parts of it, and hopefully be able to answer a lot of questions through that process on the work session. But I wanted to make that open to the public. It's going to be at 5:30, and it's going to be over at the library. And then the schedule itself is we'll get the information from council, see what they think generally of that, and so formally we're required to post the proposed budget on August 15th. So again, work session will happen. We'll hear your input from council. If there's changes need to be made at that point in time, we'll make those, but we have to post it by August 15. That's the law. September 2, the City Council will hold their first public hearing on the budget. Again, it's another opportunity for public input. It's an opportunity for city council to change the budget proposal. There's a second reading required, which is September 16, another public hearing for the public to comment on the budget. And so there's multiple opportunities yet here to comment on the budget. And again, it'll be posted August 15 online on our website, so anybody in the community can take a look at that. I did want to give a quick little, very, very quick little sneak preview, but I think there's some history here that just needs to be indicated very quickly. So I want to talk about the general fund in 2023. So we heard the auditor talk about what it was in 2023, and it was 7% in reserves. And you kind of look at your 7% is your benchmark. If you ask questions on why is it that bond rating companies lower or not lower, or say you're stable, if this number is below what's standard in the industry, which is like 2 months, council has a policy that's 17%, you will see them think that your financials are a concern to them. And so we were at 7% at the end of 2023. This past audit showed us at 19 is what he showed you in the audit. So that's great. But if you actually look at what happened during that fiscal year, we overspent. We overestimated revenues. We didn't overspend the budget, but we spent more than the revenue we took in by a very significant number, actually, 600 and some thousand, which would have brought us down to probably 2 to 3%. So council making a decision at that time to place those funds into the general fund reserve has brought us to what I would call a stable place. And as a city council, your policy, just for the future, says that there's action to be taken anytime you get below 10%. It requires a plan from the city manager to come up and restore that back to that 17%. So to me, that's one of the biggest benchmarks that you look at and watch for when you look at your general fund. And your utilities also needs to have reserves. Their rainy day funds, something happens you didn't anticipate, you need to replace, there should be funds in there. And so that's where you ended. We ended in a very good place when it comes to the books, shall we say, because of that move. Your budget coming before you is going to be a balanced budget in the general fund. Actually, it's slightly less of expenditure budget than what it is in the current year we are in. And so that's what you'll see. We actually track now, and you as council have demanded monthly finance reports from us, and we give those to you so you can see and we can see where the revenues are tracking and expenditures are tracking. So for the current year we're in, I will say, and I'm the one who put together the budget for this current year, our revenues and sales tax are tracking lower than what we budgeted for. And so what you do is you watch that, monitor that, and so our expenses are actually trending lower as well. So we're pretty confident our projections say it will be break even and maybe even be a surplus at the end of the year. And that's really what you should have and look for. And as you do that, you know, those monthly reports, you ask questions sometimes, council member, you always should do that. You should feel free to do that, because that's where you end up in the year, and you got to audit here in what? August, a month before your next budget, and it tells you that your revenues, well, your expenditures exceeded significantly over what your revenues came in. And so that's the general fund. Hopefully everybody looks at that and says, we're in a far more stable place. Is it a good place? We had to reduce 15 positions last year through the budget process. We had to make significant cuts to the budget. And so we are at a stable place, but it's at a less higher level of personnel and what we're able to do in the community than what it was. I still think that the citizens get a pretty good level of service, especially in public safety and the parks area and from the whole department. So I think it's a good place for the city to be in. We keep saying, please, please shop local so that those sales tax numbers can rebound. We're seeing them run pretty, they're running pretty much the same as last year now, but it wasn't that way at the end of last calendar year. Towards the end of October, November were really bad months for the city, but now we're seeing them kind of flatten out. Projections are we're going to start seeing those come up from people who actually do this for us. I want to say about the utilities fund. Utilities same situation was, certainly in the decline. Your reserves were quite low, and it caused the city to do a rate study and adopt two 17% increases in a row in order to bring that back in. If you saw the audit, it was positive in revenues over expenditures. That's a very good thing, and the only impact of that was the first rate increase. And so what we're actually projecting at the end of the year is a very positive positive ending balance, a surplus in the utility fund, which is very good. And then as you look into the following year, the proposed budget, it's very significant. And what's important to understand is you can operate a utility on a day-to-day basis, but you have to be putting aside money for replacements for some of these things. Most of those, like that water line project, was a bonded issue. And so I think I'm very pleased to see where the city is on utilities now. And we'll talk about the rate increase that was already adopted, whether or not you actually want to do that this year or not. But utilities has gotten much better. It's in a position where it's got its what's standard for the business in its reserves now, based on what we're projecting for next year. So I tell you, I think you're in a stable place. We're certainly not in a great place where we can start spending money everywhere. It's still quite tight, I will say. But on the other hand, it's just a great thing to see the city being at a stable financial place after some difficult times. And then finally, I just want to say that appreciate Garrett Houston, Public Works Director. You may have seen in the paper or heard that he did a couple of meetings on Delwood Park, and that will be one of the projects that will be moving forward here in the next 6 or 7 months. And I also know that there was some paving done, still more paving to go yet, some overlay work or some chip seal work. And so those are going on right now within the city. Thank you.
I have a question. You've mentioned a couple of times that we need to really watch the reserves. Julian's now giving us monthly report. How can we as a council monitor that so that it never happens again?
So it is a little hard to see that on a monthly basis, because one of the things is property tax comes in at a certain particular time. So it's always going to show you trending higher. So you really have to look at the sales tax, property tax, and you know, as you look at the monthly reports, they tell you where you are on expenditures. So if you just check the bottom line, it's going to say you're at 66%. And which month are you in? And you're at 66%. Revenue's a little trickier because of that property tax one. It can say you're looking good, but you're not. And so you really have to just look and say, okay, property's here, but where's sales tax? I think that's your biggest secondary revenue source is your sales tax. That's the one more likely to fluctuate than any of them. So zooming in on sales tax, property tax is pretty set. We get numbers from the county. Your property tax is basically paid like a year later, so they're going to be pretty on. So you're going to watch that. What I actually saw in the audit was a combination of revenue underneath what was budgeted. There were, planning department came in under budget. Sales tax was under what was budgeted. So you had multiple revenue sources that came in under budget. And so you just have to really take a look at those percentages, and I would say take a little time on those monthly reports. It is our job to tell you if we're seeing issues there, but it's certainly looking at those percentages on the revenue side especially, and the bottom line down in expenditures is very important. It's always times maybe you'll pay an insurance premium 1 year in advance, and so you'll see spikes in your expenditures, but they should be close on the expense side. The revenue side, as I said, watch the sales tax, look at where the percentages are in planning and so forth. And planning can be, you can be under. We were under a revenue projection about a month ago, and a $100,000 check came for a very big project. And so all of a sudden now we're above projections for revenue. So the big part of that is just really take a look at those monthlies, pay attention to them. It is staff's job not to let that get out of hand. And sales tax was a good or $500,000 under what I had thought it would be, but there's savings even greater than that within the operating budget. So that's what my advice to you would be is you just cannot let that go. And if it goes under 17%, which is your policy, one time, it should be an immediate plan to bring that back the next year. It should show you at the end of at the proposed budget where it says surplus or in parentheses, which I heard Councilmember Corbell says I don't like those. You don't like those. But I mean, if you're under that, it should show the number to get you back to 17. The only time so for me, the Great Recession was a time when we actually went into the reserves a little bit. COVID was a time that I went into the reserves, but the plan is it's a short-term fix. It is not a long-term. That's one-time money. It's not going to fix you for multiple years. And so you look at as an adjustment, so you don't have to immediately decrease all your services and hoping or at least projecting out that your revenues will come back up, if that makes sense.
Any questions? Public comment? All right, we're gonna go ahead and move to the council comments, announcement. I did see one here for the library for August. If y'all it's out on Facebook and everything too, right? Okay, so everybody's looking out on Facebook. There's a lot of activities for everybody, like canning classes returning in September, all kinds of good stuff. Anybody have anything else?
I do. It's August now, and we're headed back to school. In the city of Mount Pleasant, the Chamber of Commerce and Mount Pleasant Merchants present the second Saturday Back to School Bash. There will be free school supplies. DJ Tronics will be there. Yard games, face painting, foam party, dunk tank with special guest. I think we're trying to get the mayor up there for that. It is going to be at Caldwell Park. It'll be August 19th, 2025 from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. and there'll be free backpacks given out.
The date is this coming Saturday, the 9th.
The 9th. Sorry about that.
Oh, I'm open the 19th, not the 9th. All right. Any more comments?
I just want to say, Chief, Mark, I'm glad to see that we were celebrating some of our officers here tonight. My kid was involved. It wasn't the topic of today's discussion. Very glad that he came out okay, and the quick thinking of the officers in the field that day. A lot was going on. It was chaos, and they really brought some good professionalism and managed the crowds. So I just want to second what you said earlier, and definitely appreciate all the first responders, fire too. I know y'all weren't recognized tonight, but just appreciate all y'all's efforts out there to keep everyone safe.
I have a comment about something I'd like to see on the agenda. The last couple of weeks, I've been very concerned about some issues within the city and our relationships with our partners. I would like to see on the agenda, maybe not in the next couple of weeks, but in the very, very near future, I would like to see presentations given to our public, to our citizens, about the issues with our fire contract and our issues with TriSet, whether they're good or bad. Everybody in this community deserves to know exactly what's going on, what the repercussions can be, and all the facts need to be out there. I know a lot of personalities have been involved, but it is time for us to put personalities aside. We need information. We need transparency with our partners. We need to try to get everybody on the same page, and we need to address that in public. Thank you. And I would like to see the chief and whoever was with water or somebody with TriSet, I would like to see some people in here to give us some information, good or bad. We need to get it out there because everybody is truly, truly concerned about where we're going.
I agree. Any public comment? All right, we're gonna go ahead and close the open session, move to executive session pursuant to Open Meetings Act, Chapter 551, Texas Government Code. The city council will recess into executive session to discuss the following: consultation with the attorney, Texas Government Code 551.071, and personal matters, Texas Government Code 551.074, to deliberate the appointment, employment, evaluation, reassignment, duties, discipline, or dismissal of a public officer or employee, interim city manager, and city manager. Thank you all for showing up. If you're not here in a couple hours.
You have
All right, we're back into open session, and we have 2 action items. And can I get a motion? Item 12.
I'll make a motion to accept the resignation notice of Greg Nahoff as interim city manager effective September 3rd, 2025.
Second.
Madam Secretary, can you take the vote?
Yes.
Yes.
Aye.
Aye.
With a heavy heart, aye.
Aye. It's unanimous.